Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Our panel, we are really excited. The panel is here. So, just to give you an intro, so today's conversation is on, one of our initiatives which we've taken as PayU team is that Fintech for Bharat. And the point of discussion is going to be around financial inclusion. And to that, before we get into that, in fact, I'd like to introduce my panel. Uh, Chirag Jain, who joins us from Urban Company. He is an associate director at Urban Company, and he has over 7 years of experience in working with organizations who are empowering and employing, giving employment to uh, thousands of young men and women in India, like uh, Uber and Urban Company, and he is an MBA grad from IIM Indore. And Naveen, who is our senior director at PayU, he is heading the SMB payments vertical. His team and he and his team are building SMB focused products, which is the next uh, big thing in fintech for businesses and in India. And I think that's where the growth story is, and everybody wants to know what is happening. So, just to give a perspective, brief on Naveen, he's been a co-founder multiple times. He's a seasoned professional in product marketing and product management and design, and he has over 22 years of experience, which ranges from startups, SMBs, and even large-scale enterprises like Rakuten. So, we really look forward to hearing his experience across business sizes and shapes. So, to that, I'll come back to my topic, which is financial inclusion. We all keep hearing about financial inclusion. It's not just India. I think everywhere, and especially in developing economies, it's the next big thing, right? How do you, and that's sort of a, I would say, a lever for developing economies to become the next developed nations. So to that, I would like to read out what World Bank defines financial inclusion as. It says businesses and individuals have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs. It includes transactions, payments, savings, credit insurance, etc. Right? So when I talk about financial inclusion today, we I'd like to know more about, our panel's perspective on which goes beyond just banking. It is not just limited to banking, actually. The definition classic itself ensures that it covers every realm of, financial products, whether it is for businesses or it is for individuals. To that, I'd like to ask the panel here, what do they think are in the last few years have been the top developments in financial inclusion in the Indian economy as per them? So, Naveen, over to you first.
Hey, thanks, Neha. So, if you were to look at this concept of financial inclusion, it's pretty broad-based, right? So, I think what we also need to do is to, kind of break it up into what are the trends in the industry today, and perhaps what we have been following, and there are tailwinds over the last couple of years. So, the biggest bang for buck change that happened that kind of was truly disruptive in its nature was the introduction of UPI based payments by NPCI a few years ago, as most of the audience also are aware of. Now, obviously, what that did is a few things which are super powerful in our world of financial inclusivity. It helped suddenly bring the concept of transfer from peer to peer in real time 247. And this was kind of a little tricky prior to that because while wallets, etc., were ruling the roost, you suddenly have this concept where I can derive instant gratification for a commercial activity, and I could, either pay a merchant, I could pay a, some other individual, split my bills, pay them, etc. But there are also other inclusive forces because UPI is fairly established now and it's skyrocketing by the day. So much so in 2018, Google even recommended this to the Fed. And if you look at the more recent trends, I think it's not just about the evolution of how UPI has become so mainstream, but also other concepts like, say, lending, or for that matter, your buy now, pay later constructs, which is just taking the world by storm. India is obviously sitting right there at the center of it. And our digital literacy, the way I mean, if you were to take this whole SMB view for that for a second, not just the large enterprises, you suddenly see a similar pattern repeat. So you want, if I'm a merchant, I need payment solutions that don't take up a whole bunch of my time. I need commercial capability to be able to go online as quickly as possible, given the whole pandemic thing for the last couple of years, which has just moved the whole world by storm. India has been no exception. And if anything, inclusivity has only increased. And then you have all these other easy to pay modes and methods as well. And as a merchant, I also want great success rates that want to be, so that I don't lose out on transactions, I don't lose out on my GMV. And I want that established presence itself. And like I said, there are a whole bunch of other ancillary products and capabilities that are helping. For example, you could take that day in the life of the merchant, whether it's lending, whether it is, like I said, BNPL, whether it's instant payments, whether it's instant settlements, instant refunds. All of these are becoming more and more mainstream. And in addition to these, obviously, the usual suspects, as you expand your payment modes for a company like PayU, over 150 different modes, the types of constructs, the ability to offer more of affordability constructs, whether it's EMI offers, whatever. And then, of course, credit, insurance, all of these. So it follows. And then you want to look at it as a full stack player, even if you look at it as large enterprise or SMB, again, that micro segment, you have this dominant tailwinds that are powering you to actually say, okay, as the cost of data is plummeting, you're suddenly putting the smartphone in the hands of every tier 3, tier 4 customer. As per our own research, more and more of them used to still 65% or odd of India is still cash. So how do you actually bring more of the digital inclusivity and bring constructs that will help aid digital financial inclusion and then play the whole commerce stack? These are all the trends that, at the top of mind recall that, are really, really in the mainstream as we speak. And then, needless, I don't know if some of you had read the most recent report by JP Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon. He says there are these vectors, and then you just cannot afford to ignore them, whether it is, constructs like neobanking or whether it's all of these usual ones that I just highlighted, credit, insurance, and then, of course, the whole explosion in the world of the digital currency constructs that governments are trying to govern. And then you have to play by the regulatory constructs as well. So, it's this whole bouquet of core and also the other supporting products and services that are like super important for small, medium, large merchants, or for that matter, even the government large enterprises that companies of our scale deal with. Hope this helps, Neha.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of insights. It's just not about, as you started with payments, but you covered, like you said, it's a full stack. So it's absolutely right. Like Chirag, would you like to share something here?
Yeah, I think very similar thoughts. I would say that basically to get a higher participation in the formal economy, you have to clear all the passports to be able to transact in the formal economy. What are passports today? Passports is a bank. So Jan Dhan Bank, Payments Bank. These are ways to get a passport into how you can transact and open accounts. PAN card issuing. I've seen that everyone has a PAN card. Now it's no longer that only few people in tier one or metro cities have PAN cards. Everyone has PAN cards, or most people are trying to get PAN cards very easily. Then is the UPI ID, which is a passport for sending and receiving money, like how just stressing on what Naveen said, and then what's actually happening now is through OCEN, the Open Credit Enablement Network, and the account aggregator, data is becoming portable. So earlier, you did not have a passport of data. but now your data just flows around with you in a and there's a consent layer. You can give your consent to any lender, that person gets data, and then there's an easier and better loan term for you. So I would just say that a passport based approach for these 4 5 things have really been the uh, catapult for financial inclusion.
Right. I think you're right there in the sense that if, for example, if everybody has a PAN card, you can there's a digital print for them, and hence getting into the system of giving in a credit, giving insurance, opening bank accounts, it becomes easier. The more and more data you have about, like, even somebody who's just starting to work, he can build on that and get access to any financial product needed, and it will be easier for you know uh, banks or NBFCs to be able to provide that easily. On that note, I'd also like to share some updates while I was doing a research on what financial inclusion is all about. I looked up on what has happened in India, and I'd like to give some numbers wherever possible and give some facts and as to what our esteemed governments and regulators have been doing to ensure that we are reaching the tier 2, tier 3, 4 towns and creating products for them. So number one, as Naveen said, UPI. UPI as of August 21 has crossed 3.5 billion transactions. That is worth $86 billion. So that's a success story in itself, and it, it gets established further by the fact that we are trying to create products like UPI or UPI for other countries as well. Secondly, now we have a framework to even on UPI, which is now RBI has issued that framework to enable small value payments digitally offline. So that is again a very big, connectivity is a problem. So I think we are trying to get penetrate more and more into the rural parts of India. Second, I think on insurance aspect, our government has announced 100% FDI insurance intermediaries, as well as increased the FDI in insurance sellers from 49% to 49% to 74%. So this also shows that how serious we are, how we want every Indian to have access to good insurance. And and to that note, like even now we have good web aggregators and repositories through which you can easily access your documents, right? So it's not just about enabling people to come invest in India, but how do we even ensure that one is access, the other one is ease as well, right? So we have to take care of both. And lastly, I'd like to mention that we are creating products. We are our regulators are giving out policies, government is passing bills to ensure that more and more investments come and create different models which are suitable for the next set of Indians who need these products. For example, in credit, can we have differentiated credit systems which are right now being issued in the form of payment banks or small finance banks to penetrate in the next and create differentiated offerings for people who are not right now have so much documentation or are under or the needs are very different from what the products are already in the market. So all these initiatives, I definitely feel that are taken in the right direction in the last 5 to 6 years to ensure that there is more and more investment, there is more and more technology, and hence awareness being built around different pillars of financial inclusion, as I would say. That brings me to my question to Naveen, is that how is your team building products for small to medium sized businesses from payments aspects to ensure that entrepreneurship gets picked up in India? More and more people feel comfortable that they can grow their businesses. They have the means and technology to be able to make it on their own instead of getting into 9 to 5 jobs. Not that I'm
Yeah.
discouraging anybody to join jobs.
No, I think it's a very relevant question, right? Now, again, our research that we've been undertaking, Neha, you're familiar with this. I think the thinking in the industry for a while was that it's only the large biggies that have the wherewithal to actually go create strong web stores, personalized storefronts for each customer, targeted recommendations. The likes of Amazon, Flipkart have really aced it over the many years. So that's a solved problem. However, for the larger SME segment, and when I say SME, right, here are some stats, and this is our research which corroborates the same. When we were doing our strategy discussions and we were thinking about the kind of the opportunity size in the SMB market itself, there are close to about 70 odd million MSMEs, and depending on how you segment it, let's say out of that, about 7 to 8 mil are, let's say, digitized. Now, what do you mean by digitized? When either they have some sort of a web presence or maybe some sort of a website, maybe people can order or people can still likely just browse their catalog, or they transact more and more, as many of the people on this forum as well would probably be familiar, which is conversational commerce route. So that's the top of the funnel. Or they come through various, the web stores that are already out there in the market, the Shopify's, the Shopmatics, the BigCommerce, etc. Now, if you were to then deconstruct the problem and say, okay, who am I targeting and how can I digitize more and more? Can I help them in marketing? How cool would it be if I were an SMB and I have the ability to go target customers with personalized product recommendations basis the data, like Chirag was mentioning earlier. I have the data, within all the regulatory ambit of leveraging on it, maybe, anonymize on a cohort-based segment, and then be able to target that customer segment or the customer and tell them that, look, there is this particular product that you might be interested in, and this comes off a merchant to their respective customers or a potential customer base, and could you convert them over from maybe XYZ channels? That could be omni-channel, right? It could be the typical customer searching off for Google, or they could be coming off through social networks, could be coming off any channel, WhatsApp, conversational commerce, Instagram, etc. So you could help them create web identities, you could help them drive into the funnel. Now, once that happens, your next challenge, and this is across a myriad segments, it could be the long tail of SME, it could be your professional service providers, maybe startups like you were saying, Neha, or people who want to go at it alone. They have a great idea, they want to validate in the market, they found some market product fit, and they want to expand and grow the business. Or maybe it's manufacturing, maybe it's freelancing, maybe it's edtech. So many. We saw a pattern, and the patterns as follows, and this applies across more of the tier 2, tier 3 than actually tier 1. You see the growth curves. It's actually thanks to geo democratizing cost of the ARPU and basically helping, carriers want to raise ARPU, but at the same time, what geo did was truly disruptive, that they made it affordable for the masses. And then now tier 3, tier 4 adoption is also increasing exponentially. You're seeing a huge adoption. And most of them are coming on to online the first time through their phones. So they've completely bypassed the browser era. So you got to solve it for them. So that's the need. Now, what are the needs from a commerce perspective, from a payments perspective, and can you be that full stack player, right? So that's a dominant and an opportunity for the taking. And then, of course, you expand it into ancillary capabilities we spoke of earlier. So like I said, the pattern is as follows. You want to be able to solve for, let's say, customizing the language content when it comes to payments, vernacular for checkout, something, Neha, you're familiar with, which PayU launched with a few languages about a few months ago. And we have seen some great traction in that area. Or whether it could be, like we said, right, all these digital lockers and ensuring that you can actually have all of these supported and regulated portals from where you can actually do things like KYC and solve for making sure that a merchant coming in for the first time is indeed who they say they are. Whether it means validating a PAN with a bank account number, so they can collect payments from their customers and so on and so forth. Or whether it is solving for a low bandwidth scenario, right? So that, like you were saying, Neha, the RBI solutions, one of them. There are myriad ones out there that people are experimenting with, and we are too. Now, if you look at the other end of the spectrum, it's also about trying to provide and solve for it holistically. How can you keep them sticky? How can you keep them engaged to coming to you, the platform provider, if you're an aggregator like PayU, well beyond just payments. You've got to think beyond just payments. You're going to solve for the whole funnel, and that's how you will bring and keep customers and merchants sticky to your platform. Obviously, merchants, because we are a B2B2C player, but then how do you keep those customers sticky of those merchants, and how do you to those merchants and those merchants themselves to our platform by offering these services and segment wise, right? Whether it is large enterprise or government or SMEs. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I think as you said, like for example, a product like vernacular, while you are uh, I think it's solving two problems. One is that you are creating more and more people, you are enabling more and more people to come online and be comfortable to transact, to shop. And at the same time, this feature is giving a growth. It's like a growth engine for businesses to enable on their platform, so that more and more people convert on the payments page and should feel comfortable and shopping in their own language. So I think that absolutely makes sense. It's still,
It's
still
just one addition, Neha.
yeah.
While that is solved for at a payments leg, you got to solve for the full stack. So it's
Yeah.
not enough if only the payment pages are vernacular. You got to like make sure that the card checkout, etc., are also in the native language to provide the best possible customer experience. That's an area we focus on. Right? We're obsessed about merchant experience and how
Yeah.
our merchants and their customers can perceive the merchant's page. That's one. The other is, which is equally important, where I want to definitely stress on, is the ability to provide uh, easy, simple onboarding and integration capabilities as well to those merchants, so that it making it frictionless, and
Yeah.
maybe get them online in like 3 taps or X taps or clicks, as the case may be. And my gut says that adoption by merchants in the long tail will be more and more across that Android platform, which is dominating India, right? 90+% of India, 95% plus is on the Android ecosystem. So you got to solve for those and then work backwards. And our research corroborates some of these insights, or at least which direction the industry is headed and the customer needs. You got to solve for those.
Sure. Makes sense, and thank you for sharing that insight. Chirag, to that, like Naveen mentioned that how they are building products and solving a merchant's journey end to end. While, and I'm going to be talking specific to the business side of things, you have employed so many gig workers. They are the ones providing actual service to the customers. You have created a platform where they can come. Brought structure to this community which was not there. Today, I think people want to become, say, a beautician or have these skills so that they can be independent. And this also says, and I was doing my research and I went through an article which said, as per a Morgan Stanley report which was published last year, it said that 50% of world's people are going to try their hand on get into gig economy, right? That just clearly shows that the kind of value the platform like Urban Company can bring on the table. So how do you think that, and one is that you're providing a platform for them to be able to get customers or be able to uh, get a structure in their industry, but the other part is that they're still not recognized. Like if they go to a bank, if a beautician or a plumber is going to a bank for credit, etc., it will not be given. It'll be difficult for them to get that. So how is Urban Company, do you think they can empower these guys to get access to better credit or better rates so that they don't fall into any debt trap or wrong products, etc.? So
For sure, for sure. So there's a short term answer and a long term answer. I would first go on the long term answer, then the short term answer. So basically, we have to help build the credit profile. What do I mean by that? Today, there is a lot of capital, and if you go to all the top 10 banks, they'll say we want to lend money. If you go to all the, like, if you do a survey of all the states in India, everyone says we want to borrow money. But where is this? Where is the equilibrium? Why can't people lend money? It's because there's no credit profiles built, or the data which is sitting with banks is not the same data that is being that is actually reflective of the transactions of the gig workers. there's a big difference. So for instance, let's say I would take the example of Uber, Zomato, Swiggy. Their payment statements have so much data. Their bank statements may not have as much data as their payment statements have. So it might make sense to just leapfrog and ask Zomato for the payment statements and use that to build up a credit profile. Now, those are short term solutions. I'll just think more long term. Let's say I want to facilitate a gig worker to get a very good home loan at 8% interest. That's not possible today. But if I were to think of a 3 or 4 year strategy, what would we do? We would help a professional get a personal loan of 10,000 rupees. Probably the next time the professional can get a loan of 30,000 rupees once they repay the 10,000 loan. Then they get a vehicle loan of 80,000 rupees. Then they get a home loan of 20 lakhs at 12%. After a couple of years, that's 24 months of repayment, they get their loan refinanced for much, much cheaper at 10%, 9%, 8%. So there's no direct solution for an 8% home loan, even though gig workers might have been able to do it. It's just a 2 year wait, and in that 2 years, gig workers will have to build a credit profile through these formal channels. Because the worst thing to happen is take money from an informal source, pay high interest, and not build your credit profile. None of the data goes to any of the credit unions. So no one has a proof of how diligent or how punctual you were in your loan repayments. So this is very important, building a credit profile in the long run. Now, how do you do it in the short run? There are two things: discovery and data. First is discovery. If professionals were to go on their own and discover loan programs, they would typically do it via some Google search or some referral program, where a portion of the customer acquisition cost will be reflected in higher interest rates or processing fees. If a platform like Urban Company can host loan offers on our app itself, we don't need to incur this extra 300, 500 rupees of processing fee, which actually really pinches for a very small loan.
Yeah.
Second is data. If professionals or gig workers don't have the necessary banking data, companies like us, companies like the marketplace companies have to support with their own data to understand that, um, okay, the professional got 60,000 of earnings, out of which 20,000 were expenses. Of the 40,000, 30,000 or 20,000 was bank transfers, 20,000 was direct customer transfers. So now we can establish that the 20,000 in the bank is just a one third of the gross value that this professional, this beautician, this technician is earning. So then that is a 3x improvement in the credit profile for this professional, and it gives a lot more confidence to the NBFC. So what we do from our side is we have 2 or 3 loan journeys for our professionals, where we aggregate lenders. We work with a lot of fintech players in the field, and Oken and AA, Oken and the account aggregator network are really supercharging this entire network. So when we get them, first of all, we remove the 300 or 500 rupees of processing fee. And second, when we help with our own data, we are able to give more confidence to an NBFC or a bank. And that person can take a bigger risk. So that translates into higher loan sizes, better repayment terms, and very low interest rates. So I would not say very low. I would say, imagine blue collar employees getting gray collar interest rates, or
Wow.
gray collar employees getting white collar interest rates. So all of that is possible. There's only the data leg which is missing for them.
So you mentioned so many things make sense. You're solving in short term and you're trying to fix for the long term. I think that is what eventually everybody needs a home loan. I think that's the ultimate goal in life, mostly for buying that first home. So, but it's a journey, right? As you said. So there are so many steps to it. These guys, honestly, like even the most educated doesn't mean that we are literate like that. So, but the problem with these guys is it's next level. They get stuck in bad debt. They will will they wait? They will they understand that eventual goal is at? How do you bring that awareness in your gig workers? How have you been able to, and what are some struggles you face, and how have you been able to solve for it?
So I think Neha, the biggest struggle is to show the end goal. So money works in such a way that if people understand the end goal and the starting goal and how to do it, everything is clear. The the vision or the end goal, if it's not clear, then no one will do the extra effort of like all the intermediate steps. What do I mean by that? Like, I'll just give an example of, there were two cleaners who were two professional cleaners who were in the city, who were serving the city of Bombay. During COVID, they went to their hometown. The moment flights opened and trains opened, Neha, they booked a flight. They did not book a train. They were like, let's go fast. Let's spend 7,000 rupees on a ticket, but I'll earn that in 2 days. But I want to get to Mumbai fast. I know I can make this money. And they made they made as much money as possible before their train ride could have ended. So they're smart, because if they understand the end goal, they know that taking a flight is the right answer, even if it's 7,000 rupees. So imagine, you would not say professional cleaners would value their time so much, but they do, because they understand the end goal. Now, similarly, if professionals understand the end goal is a vehicle loan, which is cheap, they will work backwards. So the biggest challenge for us is explaining that final step. There are professionals today who have taken 6 loans on our platform. So they started with a 5,000 rupee loan and they now have a 30,000 loan they are currently servicing. And these are mostly women, because probably women understand the end goal like faster, because the moment they understand the end goal, and then they're like, acha, these are the 3 steps to do in order to get a better loan. These are 3 steps to do in order to maintain a diligent and punctual timeline, which then gets recorded in the credit bureaus. So the money language is such that everyone understands it. Um, eh, like my message to all the fintech leaders who may be hearing this video is that just focus on the final vision of where your product will put the customer.
Fair. I think big picture always helps. I think everybody needs to know that. So fair. I think
Yes.
that's a valid point. Okay, so I think we are short in time, so I'll quickly jump on to my last question. I think we all have discussed so many initiatives being done in financial inclusion in India, but the sheer volume of, I mean, population, varied, strata of society. So India has very unique challenges, and that's the reason why so many people are coming in India, making for India. So, but that doesn't. While we have made a lot of progress, we still have to accept that there are certain challenges which are still coming our way, and we need to solve for. So, what do you think are the next set of challenges which will be there? We need to we need to fix for. We need to plan for. We need to have products. We need to have regulations on and so forth. So, what are the next 2 to 3 things you all feel will be there, Chirag?
I would say business should move at the speed of thought. It should not move at the speed of waiting for a banking account to open, or waiting for a Monday morning bank to open up. So business should move at the speed of thought. So the challenges are, how do we make it 24 into 7, 365 for everyone? That's one challenge. Second is, any activity that they do, and which is any activity that we do, any activity that anyone does, if it is a positive activity that gets noted in a ledger, um, or a data chain which improves our ability to access credit or access finance later on. So I would just say that there are two things which have to be there. One has to be business moving at a much faster speed, so no unnecessary hurdles, because of like the Monday to Friday rule, etc. Or some things are only open in the mornings, in the evenings, etc., etc. Second is any positive activity. How does that get noted in a public ledger, that just becomes access, like that just improves your ability to get credit and to get all other financial services in the future.
So I think we need what you mean is maybe technology can empower that. Technology is independent of a holiday or a
For
That
sure,
should
for
be on
sure,
a Sunday.
for
So I
sure.
think more and more people need to be digitized. I think like urban companies doing that for their own gig workers, can there be universal solutions customized to these guys? Like urban company can only serve who are attached with them, but can there be companies who can create products for them? Naveen, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant point, right? I think the players like Urban Company are doing a fantastic job in this. That you got to deconstruct problems by also looking at democratizing and offering. You can build a platform. I think the focus should be, like you rightly said, Neha, build focus more on products evolving into platforms, into ecosystems. That's the that's the silver bullet. And once you do that, you can basically make the flywheel spin faster and faster, much as any of the large platforms, including the likes of Urban Company, have grown. But you bring your uh, app store constructs, if you will, into all of these large plays. Now, whether it means bringing experts to the platform, so you focus on building the right technology empowerment, educate through whatever, right? Financial inclusion, financial literacy, digitized constructs. And like I was saying earlier, our research points in that direction on tier two, tier three. There are certain patterns that are emerging. Solve for, providing experts to help them get over their fear of going online, get over their fear of taking payments and accepting payments if I were a merchant in a tier three, tier four city. Stop in obviously have strong regulatory compliance constructs, but at the same time, to not compromise on customer and merchant experience. And then also make sure that that flywheel is self-fulfilling, if you will, right? So only then, by adding new products and services, you can't like App Store democratize the entire and build that. For those of you that are probably interested, there's a great book by Andrew Chen called The Cold Start Problem. It's a fantastic way of looking at how the Meerkat's law works into play and builds faster and faster self-fulfilling flywheels like all of these players, right? Whether it's Urban Company, Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, Flipkart, all of the large marketplaces and the mid-sized marketplaces. So if you are a player, small and medium, just start a startup, small and medium, or the large player, you want to focus on building that technology platform that brings all of these complementary product services that likely may fall outside your core, but you still want them to complement so you can power the value of the platform goes up. Total is greater than the sum of the parts. And then customers come flocking into it and then provide the entire stack. Obviously, payments is a big deal. But think beyond that too, to look at the whole commerce stack. That's my solution on how one could go about it.
Yeah, so I think I'll add to that. Like you mentioned that there is this friction of coming online, and how do we get more involved? Do you guys think that is to do with our socio cultural barriers? Can there be that how do we how do we get the older generation to be comfortable digitally? How do we get
Excellent, excellent question, Neha. I think you hit it on the head. Just today morning, I was reading a LinkedIn post by a fellow NASCOM peer. I'm on their mentor network and also the product council there. And when we have our strategic group discussions, one of the topics that came up was the guy lives in Lucknow, and he was talking about all these elders whose children are often abroad and find difficulty in using products. See, look, you got to solve for all of the strata of the society. I'm deeply influenced by the Japanese culture that way. You really have to give it to them. So you take the customer and their pain points and work backwards. Now, in this example, this close peer was talking about, they're saying there are a whole bunch of elders that he discovers day in, day out who struggle to use our apps because they're just not elder friendly. I have my own elderly parents who, with all their deep computer science literacy, and us children, oftentimes, helping them solve through or, solve for the technology challenges, there are many that likely may not have that benefit. And even these people struggle oftentimes. And we've all seen this parents, grandparents, etc., or aunts, uncles. But it looks like that's a very underappreciated segment where people are just focused on solving it for the millennials and for the modern genre. And somewhere down the line, maybe sure we also figured that we've got to keep uh, inclusivity constructs and hence solve for other user experience paradigms. You got to make sure you're using more voice, etc., and other media. But I truly believe what he said and what you pointed to, Neha, is a very valid aspect, and we are not, to be honest, I think there's more room to grow in that space and solve for that, because clearly I see these people struggle with all our major apps. It's not a one-off thing or something, right? I think it's a very valid point, and it's underappreciated. I don't know. I would love to hear Chirag's thoughts.
Chirag?
I actually didn't get the core of the question, Neha. Could you
So
just?
I was saying that, like Naveen mentioned, right? Like there is hindrance of some people coming online for some reason or the other. One of the classic is like people above 50, 40 who have not grown with technology. It doesn't come naturally to them. That they also need to be like, how do we spread awareness about all these things, right? Like there can
Got it.
are there some social cultural barriers or age related, if for that matter, how do you bring about awareness at a very young age about financial inclusion, right? How do you ensure that, can we make it a part of our curriculums in the school? Can we have some
Yeah,
kind of, so I,
extremely tricky. I think there are some interesting startups which are trying to get into the entire pocket money management too. So I do see, but this is a slightly long tail problem, and probably haven't thought very deeply on this. But I do feel that uh, yeah, for folks who are for folks who use it more for browsing or for an ancillary activity of theirs, it's going to be a very uphill task.
so I think it is already happening. Like I know about, like, some, there are certain RWAs who take initiatives. Like, how do you make bill payments easy? RWAs have, tied up with banks or fintech players who come and educate. This is how you can use the app. This is how it is. You don't have to stand in, like my grandfather used to stand in line. But now, like, that generation has learned that, there is some, I don't need to stand in line. There is a way to make this bill payment easier, whether it is gas or it is electricity. So that's also education. I think we are starting, but there's a long road to go. And
The
we
learning curve, that's
exactly.
something that we need to shorten because it's still quite high. I see this. I empathize with these. I help a lot of the elders in and around my own social circle, and I can guarantee you it is not a solved problem. I don't think that segment is in focus yet as much as one would like it to be. I think
Yes.
we need to innovate as a country better in that area. This is my personal thought.
Cool.
For
On that
sure,
note,
for sure.
I think we are out of time. I have a question from our uh, audience. There's one question, whether PayU has international payments, cross-border payments. Yes, we do. You can reach out to us on help.payu.in and we'll help you how you. It's a very fairly simple process, basic documentation, and you can start accepting payments in uh, any currency, major currencies. Yeah. So on that note, is there any other question? I'll wait for another minute, and after that we can end.
Yeah, I see that Vansa had pinged me on the same question. Yeah, so I think Neha, if you're a merchant in India and want to accept payments, please do reach out to help you.
Yeah, we do offer that. Okay, I think there are no more. Okay, there is. So there's a question, and I would like panelists, if anybody would want to take it. How different is digital inclusion from financial inclusion? Any thoughts there?
They overlap. So short answer is a digital is an all-encompassing journey, right? It could be as varied as I'm an offline. If I'm a merchant, I'm an offline store. I wish to go online and I want to go the whole hog, which means create my identity, do my campaigns, attract my customers, keep them sticky, keep them engaged, collect my payments, and that's where the financial inclusivity comes in. Financial inclusion comes more from the perspective of making things more accessible to, I mean, if you will, right? I used to joke about this many years ago, not possibly to even now. Provide banking for the unbanked, provide capabilities with two taps on their Android phone for accessing, let's say, instant credit, cheap credit, whatever aspects that Chirag pretty much dealt in very, very minutiae, but in a very great level, right? So solving for those. or ensuring if I'm a merchant, then I want like, quick settlements. I don't want to wait those 2 days or whatever. I have working capital needs. Came out again as a strong signal from our SMB merchants we kept speaking with. So can you solve for my working capital needs better? They will not say I need instance, and that's for us to problem solve. They're telling you the symptom of the problem. It's for us product people to figure out what is the uh, core of the problem, right? So these are all aspects and areas. That's why I would say it's all encompassing. When you say digital inclusion, it means getting them into the digital journey and keep them engaged digital and make it sort of like augmented reality, right? You morph the real with the digital and make sure that you're providing one experience. It's seamless.
I think
And when you say
digital.
financial,
Yeah.
tight.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. So when you say financially, just tie the financial inclusivity aspect across all those constructs and levers and vectors and bring it into the ambit of the digital inclusivity. That is going to complete the
I
story.
think digital inclusion facilitates financial inclusion well.
Correct.
I think
That's what.
there's no physical boundaries available wherever you are. Whether like banking correspondents have been they are it's a way of banking selling banking products to the end consumer somewhere in a very remote area of a Rajasthan or a Bihar, right? So that guy sitting there while he is facilitating financial inclusion by having a computer in his small shop and those guys be able to send money transfer money digitally. So digital inclusion facilitates financial inclusion. I would say that.
Can I give one word of thought that when I was in Flipkart many years ago, 2016, 15, we did research. I used to go with my field executives to deliver packages in the last mile and look at what the customer behavior is and what are the needs and wants. One thing we figured out from a tier 3, tier 4 as we started talking to our customers was this, right? People were so fearful of whatever online apps or Flipkart per se also or anything else, right? In those days. And things have changed a lot more with UPI, etc. after that. But they'd go to their local store or their local head of a particular store who'd have an app, ask that person to order on their behalf, get that delivered there through last mile, collect it and pay that person in the cash, right? So we had all these very, very unique, even the people were like just super ambivalent about accessing technology or financial inclusivity. And low bandwidth payments is an underappreciated problem. Think about that tier 3, tier 4, where there is a lack or a intermittent network connectivity, whether it is an RBI recent announcement or all of our payments players are doing something to add value in that space. We are too. But then if you look at that problem in a deeper way, think about even a tier 1 where a field executive is going in a lift and likely loses internet connectivity. Is there a way, or maybe in a deep apartment or a commercial complex where they have no access to internet, and obviously they don't have access to Wi-Fi's in those commercial office establishments. Can you solve for those? Right? That is in some sense financial inclusivity, where you're looking at all areas and tiers and not restricted to just saying, oh, this is tier 3 or this is a tier 1 problem. You're not you're solving it for all the segments. So, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I think we are short on time on that note, and we don't have any questions. Even if we do, I think it's time. Thank you so much, the audience, the panel. Chirag, Naveen, thank you so much for your time. This is,
Thank you,
yeah,
Neha. It was an absolute blast to be on the show and also learn a lot of things from Naveen, who is a tenured product leader in payments.
absolutely.
Thank
And
you, Neha and Chirag, for having us. And Chirag, great thoughts. To be honest, I think we learned a lot as well from your perspective. And I think it's the like Jeff Bezos says. I think we are on day zero in his world of the retail aspect. But I would extend it even to saying the kind of hockey stick growth that we are as a country seeing. We are at the very unique cusp of really kickstarting an explosion that likely many countries will adopt in terms of financial and digital inclusivity over. And India as a pioneer, to be honest, we should be proud of ourselves as a country. We're doing many of first for this country, which is being replicated by other countries. And I think that's
Yes.
great for our ecosystem. startups, SMEs, large enterprises, players like us, PayU, urban company, etc. Each of us is adding our very, very deep value-added constructs there. So thank you for having us and great exchanging thoughts. Thanks,
Thank
Chirag.
you.
Thanks, Neha.
Have a good evening. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you for having us. Bye-bye. Thanks to the audience.